Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to 5 and 15, a webinar series where we promise to deliver 5 interesting, useful, sometimes even amusing tips at a minimum, all within the context of a 15-minute webinar. Because, like us, we know you are busy, so we try to pack it in. Today, exciting guest. I think they're all exciting, Greg, but you're really exciting. So, Greg Berger. Going to look at the title to make sure I get it correct. Global Director, Customer Insights and Growth Marketing at climate.com. We've talked a couple times, and I got to tell you, Greg is into some big data, artificial intelligence. Wow, predicting the future, maybe. He's going to get out his crystal ball for us. But seriously, we all know that data, big data, not just for farming, but for communications, for customer satisfaction, for customer connections, is ever more important. So we're going to touch on all of those things today. So Greg, with that, why don't I let you just give a little introduction of yourself and Climate.
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, Greg Berger, I lead 2 main functions at Climate. So it's our market and customer insights team and our engagement and growth marketing teams. Both of those are global in nature. We're in kind of this interesting situation where we execute in the US, but we are global, and then we work with our regional marketing counterparts to kind of execute in region, but help provide global frameworks, approaches, and tool sets and capabilities. So my background, I spent about 5 years as a market research provider, largely in the retail banking, finance, and insurance space. I then moved into a sister business and led an analytics team there, largely doing program performance impact analysis for our clients in the consumer loyalty, employee engagement, and channel and direct sales incentive space. Did that for about 5 years and then moved into Climate. So new to ag, had never been in the space before, and I joined Climate about 5 years ago now. So kind of get those blocks of time.
Sure, curious to see, and you have a great story that we'll get to about your first, really, I think it's such a wonderful story about getting immersed in farming and really an understanding of that. But that's a common thing now. Technology, Silicon Valley, even involving in agriculture. There's so many examples of that. Is it an advantage for tech guys to come into agriculture, or is there a steep learning curve? Or why is that happening, and how do you feel that's been for you? Does it allow you to bring extra value to the equation?
Yeah, I would say the learning curve is certainly steep, but it's been one of the most fun industries to learn. One of the reasons is that even though we're headquartered in San Francisco, I'm located in St. Louis, which is where our commercial marketing teams are really headquartered at, down the street from our parent company, Monsanto, which is now Bayer. And so we're held pretty separate from them, which is good as an innovation hub. But because we're so close, we do get to tap their resourcing. So I can pick up the phone in a normal situation, maybe not today, and I could be in the cab of a tractor in an hour or two with a customer doing a ride along, going out with one of our field sales representatives, just getting to learn about what they go through in their day. And that was one of the most fun things, was to just learn the depth of knowledge there is in the ag industry. Row crop, is certainly its own animal, and especially in the precision farming space, I was just really floored with the level of detail and precision and data that is put into placing the right seed at the right spot, at the right depth, at the right spacing. And how exacting that can be and the impact that can have on profitability for a grower.
Okay, so
Really
that's
interesting.
yeah. So now, are you more on product development or customer relationships and customer experience?
A bit across the board between the 2 functions, to be honest. So on the market and customer insights team, we cover any and all market research that you could kind of think of, with the exception of user experience and design work. That's a pretty specialized acumen that we leave to our counterparts in the product organization, who are actually designing, and we'll help them execute some work, but that leaves us then responsible for things like brand health monitor, new market assessments, new product concept testing, customer experience tracking studies, any kind of blend of qualitative and quantitative research that you could think of. So we do, in that aspect, we monitor the customer experience and relationship there. How is it going in the field? How is it going interacting with our product? We work with our product and commercial teams to identify, what needs are met and unmet in the marketplace. What types of products do we need to be designing and building for the market? Where do we launch? What types of features at what price points? So that team covers a lot of ground. And then on the engagement and growth side, that team is really responsible for not new customer acquisition, but once we have a customer, how do we then work to figure out what are those key types of attributes about a customer that leads to their success and for good outcomes for our business as well. So we find those kind of mutual opportunities, and then we leverage marketing automation tools to drive that behavior. So for instance, let's say we know that through the work that we've done, we found that there really is no magic feature within FieldView that keeps a customer retained. They're all there for slightly different purposes. And so what we've got to do is find out what are they there to use, and how do we then quickly get them up to speed on how they can use that feature effectively. What we have found, though, is that frequency of usage correlates very nicely in a pretty linear fashion with their likelihood to retain. So if we can then develop tactics to try and drive increased monthly active usage, we know that will result in a good outcome for our business with the customer engaging and retaining the platform.
Okay. Based on now, so how are you, and this gets into bigger issues, and at the beginning we talked about, well, maybe get into privacy a little. This is probably a good entry point into that. We are all experiencing that, whether you have Alexa at home or just do search, and I'm sure you're seeing some of the antitrust things with Google in the news, and all that is very much related. How do you track that information? Not just you, but let's talk about in general, as, for instance, marketers, as brand builders, what kind of tools are you using to track? Are you using some of the traditional methods? You mentioned field rides and whatnot. There are interviews, that still happens, but so much is harvested either from my smartphone or from whatever device I'm interacting with. How is that happening, and how do you personalize, or how do marketers personalize, I guess? What are the best tools for that?
It's interesting because we sit at the intersection between what customers say and what they do. And so we try to marry that together.
I think everybody's marketing anything.
Yeah.
Certainly with pricing studies. Yeah. What customers say, including us, and what they do.
And I mean, humans are notoriously bad at predicting the future, even our own future behavior. And so we like to use a blend. I think you can't rely on one source to the other. So we do tend to take what is a customer saying, or a grouping of customers saying, how are they feeling, bump that against how they're actually behaving, and then figure out what are the right indicators for us to be paying attention to get to a place where, maybe we're not predicting the future, but we have a pretty good understanding of what's coming down the line.
Okay. So saying in terms of interaction with you, or even, old school, talking to them.
Yeah, exactly. So if you think about, NPS score is one of those big metrics that businesses like to use, probably because it's very simple, it's easy to compare. But because it is so simple, there's a lot of context that can be left out of, just taking a look at an index by itself. So what we do is we are currently in the process of relaunching a refreshed global customer experience tracking study. So this would be running pretty much all year round. And we'd be kind of constantly collecting feedback from our customers about how they're feeling about their interaction with our product. But we're not taking for granted that we had proven before in a previous study that NPS, even though I think it leaves a bit to be desired, it was actually a really good predictive measure for us.
It was for you, yeah.
So right now we're in the process of collecting a number of different metrics. So overall satisfaction, likelihood to recommend, customer effort score, some emotional questions, and then we'll go back with our data analytics team and bump those against key business outcomes. So
Right.
which of those align with a user's likelihood to retain, their likelihood to input data from their operation. That's a big metric for us. And so then that'll give us a better understanding of what we should be paying attention to.
Right. You want to tell people real quickly what NPS is?
Oh, sure. So Net Promoter Score. So that's simply taking the how likely are you to recommend a product or service on a 0 to 10 scale. And you'll take your percentage of promoters. So that's those who rate 9 or 10. So a top 2 box on that 11-point scale. And then you subtract out the percentage of detractors, which is actually 0 to 6. So it's a really big bucket. Your passives, who are going to be your 7s and 8s, don't contribute to the score at all. So if they sit on the fence, they're not contributing. Mm-hmm. So you take your percentage of the population that's promoter less your percentage that's a detractor and divide it by the total population. And that gives you a way to roll up and have an index score. So out of 100, either negative or positive, how are you doing?
That's great. I think any marketer can use that. I know now when we first talked, just to make sure I have the number here, I'm looking at my notes. You said that you operate in 18 to 20 countries. How different is it in the different countries? Because, farming, we do work in a lot of agriculture and food. And for instance, dairy cows are really different depending upon where you are in the world, much less, how you feed them and husbandry overall. So how different is that for you, and how does your team adapt to different needs? And agriculture is so different globally, including crops, really.
It's a challenge for sure. And it's been a bit of a wild ride. I mean, when I joined Climate, we had just launched Field View only in the US, and we've launched in that many countries here in the last couple of years. And in large part, we're eliminating some of that variability by sticking to our core, traditional business in row crop.
Okay.
So although we have an eye on expanding to, greenhouse, horticulture, we do have a smallholder offering. We are eliminating kind of some of that noise right now and just narrowing our focus to kind of keep on that row crop. But even that has a lot of variability globally. Our go-to-market strategy for Bayer Crop Science globally is different in other markets. So that can really have a play on climates and field views and distribution strategy. How do we fit into that picture? And so it's certainly been a challenge. What we tend to do is we have a bit of like a global approach that we align with the regions on, and the regions then lead execution with individual countries.
Yeah, that's what happens with a lot of marketing we're involved in, is there's a kind of a umbrella, if you will, and then recognition that you need global execution regionally.
Yeah, I view it as, global provides those frameworks and tool sets and capabilities, and then region works with country to make those kind of customization tweaks. So if you were to have like let's say a base model car, the regions would work with the countries to select their trim level and build it out.
Yeah. Okay. Now, dang, we're gonna run out of time, but see, I told you we'd go fast. So let's shift over a little to CRM. It's something every company, and we talked about how, including large companies, they say they want it, but they can't do it. And then there's the whole consumer frustration that we all experience, creepiness factor. It's getting to be winter. If, God forbid, my wife buys buys a coat for a dog on Amazon, then the next time I go there, it's like, how about this dog coat? How about not? So there are all these issues with making that work, even with, joking aside, very sophisticated companies. What's your view of CRM? Give us some tips of how to be effective, how to implement programs, what you've seen that works and what doesn't work, because clearly that's the future of marketing and promotion, but it also, doing it well is hard, really hard.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I think in my experience, even getting the foundational capability to execute is extremely challenging. to get, because the foundational basis of it is getting all of your data in one spot in a clean data set that you can then action against, you can learn from, you can iterate on. And even just getting past that hurdle is really challenging for a lot of global companies. And in my previous experience, I've gotten to work with a lot of different industries, and it's not unique to any one. I think that they all struggle with it. I think we're certainly the same, and some of that comes with being a global company, but you still have that regional and country execution type approach.
Mm-hmm.
So the pendulum can swing from centralized to decentralized. And when you have a decentralized structure, you can almost never roll back up to a formally centralized structure. And when you're fully centralized, you can never get to the level of customization that you need to really be effective in the marketplace.
Right. Wait a minute, mutually exclusive. Yeah.
Yeah. So you really end up kind of straddling the fence. And we have been making some really great inroads in providing the business with global capability sets to start to do that. But I think we're still, working on getting off the ground in terms of data capabilities and climate, because we're smaller and held separate. And now we've expanded into these other countries. And so even my team is struggling with, like, how do we do this right? How do we enable the regions to go do what they need to do? But we also need to keep global governance to make sure that, we can move forward together.
Yeah. Well, and we're pretty much out of time. We're gone over. I already know that, but we try to respect
Sorry.
it well. No, perfect. I mean, it's interesting stuff. Maybe just, and anybody who needs to jump off, they can. Again, we'll follow up with you. Any last thoughts on, the privacy issue in agriculture? Let's go back to agriculture, not just, well, it applies to any kind of marketing, doesn't it? We want to have it customized. I only want you to give me messages that I'm interested in when I'm interested in them. But at the same time, we all push back. It's like, oh, too much. How do you strike that balance? And what do you think the future of that is?
Yeah, I think for me, it's in terms of even like brand spirit, it's always felt better for brands that tend to be transparent. So if they've got something to hide, you should have something to worry about. And even those who don't have anything to hide, they just maybe aren't doing a great job of being clear and open about how they're using their data or your data, and how you have a say in how that's being leveraged. And I think that's the big key, is that we need to give users and consumers and customers an opportunity to get that level of customization, but they also have control over when too much is too much, and when enough is enough. And so I think that hopefully most of the market leaders will be kind of blazing that path. Facebook is certainly, whether they're doing a good enough job or not of it, they're trying, it seems like, to give users control over how their data is leveraged. I think to that end, though, there is so much data generated on that platform, it is nearly impossible to understand all of the different plugs into that, and who's using what. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think the sheer volume makes it ridiculously complex to try and do anything about that. Yeah. It's kind of a depressing way to end here, by the way. But Facebook, oh no, privacy. No, seriously though, artificial intelligence, big data, big factors in our future. And any last crystal ball gazing you'd want to give us about how that's going to have positive impact on our life, and really, doesn't it come down to sustainability and food security?
Yeah, absolutely. In the ag space, I mean, it's great to have a mission that we're all very positive and excited about, to be able to bring technology and leverage data that farmers are generating to provide new opportunities for them, new business models that we're looking to unlock, and really, to your point, drive sustainability and productivity for a given operation, leveraging some new tool sets that maybe they haven't had access to before. So it's an exciting place to be.
No, I can see why as a non-ag person, or formerly, 5 years in, you're pretty deep in that, it is exciting. People don't realize that all that's happening in agriculture. In a lot of ways, I've felt for a number of years that agriculture, we feel, is a leader in innovation versus this image people have of, the outdated farmer. That is just so wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the amount of technology that's on a row crop operation nowadays is just, it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
All right. Well, Greg Berger, thank you for joining us. Great information. Appreciate it. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. A little bit tardy, but hey, it's good information. I mean, you got more than 5 good ideas today. So Mark Gale, CEO at C.O.nxt, signing off till next time for 5 and 15. Thank you for joining us.